Hi, I'm Mike Hogue of Transformative Adventures, the First Church of Permaculture, and now this phenomenal book, Growing Free, Financially Resilient and Economically Empowered, which is about building the life of your dreams without losing your soul or destroying the planet. And on this week's First Church of Permaculture, we missed a question, which was a great question. Do we have, the authors of Growing Free, do we have a suggestion for right livelihoods and careers around people care? This was clearly asked by someone who feels called to care for people. You may know the term people care is one of the permaculture ethics: earth care, people care, and fair share. And and so some people may feel particularly interested in this idea of working on earth care. So yes, I have some thoughts about that I'd like to share, and we can use it as an example for the kind of process that we lay out in our book, which is really like a permaculture design and transformative adventure process for transforming your financial life and your livelihood. So the first thing that I'd note is that these terms, these permaculture ethics, earth care, people care, fair share, I go back to the old school permaculture idea that these aren't really like directives that everybody in society should do. They're not really that kind of ethics like thou shalt not kill. They're more design ethics, so that as we do a design for the landscape or our livelihoods or our financial lives or our business or whatever, we just, they're brief little check-ins so that we can check in. Is whatever we're doing caring for the earth, caring for people, and is it fair? So another way of putting that is that anything that we do can and should be people care. So so whatever you feel called to do and how you want to do it, we want to make sure that caring for people is necessarily part of it. But I gather that this person asked because in their heart they feel particularly called to work on issues of caring for people. So let's talk about that and come up with some ideas, and we'll actually use one of the design tools from this book to do it, which is the thistle. So our book is about designing the life of your dreams without losing your soul or destroying the planet. And this means that a lot of us have dreams for doing things that are a little bit difficult to make a reality. Like, nobody's going to write you a paycheck for hanging out watching Saturday morning cartoons in your pajamas. It's just like, there's not really a viable career choice. I don't know why. But nobody's going to. And for the most part, you have to be really clever if you're going to get people to pay you to hang out in your garden even, right? So, at least if you're thinking about caring for people, it's an area where there's generally a little more financial support. But a lot of times, the kinds of things that really care for the earth and care for people aren't really valued by our kind of economy and our society. So again, we have to be really careful. The whole idea of our book is being careful about designing things so that we can do what we want to do and work on the things that are important to us and not die broke in a gutter doing it. So the tool I'm going to introduce is one that we've been talking about a lot. It's one of the central ideas or tools in our book, and it's called Thistle. Because if you want to design your life to be resilient enough to do what you want and not be a slave to anybody else, then you have to design for a lot of financial resilience. And the Thistle is a master of resilience. So we have a system that emulates some of the ideas of the Thistle, and we can use it as a step-by-step sort of process to figure out how to make our own life designs better. So the T in Thistle, and we even have a clever hand mnemonic for it. So the T in Thistle, the first letter, is starts at our wrist, which is the transition from our arm to our hand. So The T is for transition, and this means that we have to have a plan for whatever we're doing now and where we want to go in the future. And we have to give ourselves permission to do that. We just can't start overnight and have our lives be perfect, right? So that's one thing right off, is to start thinking about how we can do more people care and get involved in people care more now, and not wait until we have some ideal position in the future. If you feel called to do that sort of work, then there's nothing stopping you from right now from finding some things that will get involved in directly caring for people and making their lives better, and by doing those. And that can really help you transition to that new place you want to be in. The H moves on to the next letter of thistle, and it's our whole hand, which means that we need to be thinking holistically, not just thinking about the individual parts. The hand works best when it's used as a whole. So this means that we have to have a holistic life design. One of the things in our book is that we're really trying to get beyond thinking of careers at all, or jobs. In fact, the old kind of money saying was that the poor think of jobs, or look for jobs, the middle class look for careers, and the wealthy look for investments. And this means, when we think of ourselves as just people looking for a job doing people care, or even a career doing people care, we've reduced ourselves to just being a cog in this corporate capitalist system. Something that keeps supporting systems that we already know are unjust and unsustainable and don't do people care. So we really want to think in our book of transcending this whole idea of looking at jobs as the way to solve the problem, or careers or livelihoods as the way to solve the problem. Another issue with that is pointed out in this book, one of my very favorite books, Your Money or Your Life by Joe Dominguez and Vicki Robin. And our book was so influenced by it that we even kind of made a very blatant reference to it with the cover of our book, which, both books feature the dollar bill and some sort of riff on that. And so in this book, Vicki Robin points out that when we think of even the concept of right livelihood, a lot of times we reduce ourselves to just being a job and a role. And one of the things that can come from that is we can get confused to think that, when we make our livelihoods and our jobs the thing that we want to do with our time here on this planet, then we can convince ourselves that, what we're doing is the most important thing or the only thing that matters. So there are some hang-ups that can come from talking only about right livelihood. So we try to transcend that, and we talk about right livelihood a lot in the book, actually. But we're kind of redefining it, because we're redefining it as the holistic view. Everything that we do with our lives is kind of our livelihood, not thinking that we're just going to be locked into a career or a job. With that, we could also talk about permaculture, because permaculture, this is so important to me. Permaculture is not what you do for your job. It's not what you do for your income. And Bill Mollison said this himself. He said, permaculture is actually where you bank your money and how you spend it. It's how you invest your money is permaculture. And that brings us to the I in thistle, the next letter, which is the thumb, which can be used to hand your friends money, which is a form of people care. And that tells us to invest. So permaculture, the permaculture part, is how we invest our energy, our time, our money, our resources, our passion, our life energy. So the first thing that I would like to, something for you to consider, is transcending this whole idea that you need to be working necessarily in a job doing people care or caring for people or serving for people, and more start looking for opportunities to invest your time, your money, your energy into the things that you're passionate about like things that care for people. So in our book, we actually have a lot of examples of things like this. So for people who are doing like farming jobs, a lot of times they never make a single dollar off of like selling the produce. People who are successful farmers actually make their income primarily or largely off of the appreciation of their assets that they accumulate in the process of their productive assets, their farm infrastructure, the farm itself, and their farm investments. So, and it's actually the return on that that grows in wealth over time. So here's the thing that we teach in the book. If you want to spend your life doing people care, look around. What systems for caring for people are failing in our current society? I mean, if you look around, if you're like me, you look around and you see like even garbage doesn't work well. You know, it doesn't necessarily take away people's garbage in the cities than when it should. Childcare, people are lacking good childcare in their communities. They're lacking mental health services and local support. There are so many things that would care for people are broken in our society. They've been intentionally broken down for profit, right? By big corporations. So anytime we can rebuild these local connections between people and ecosystems, to me, that's people care. And anything that's broken like that, in permaculture, we say the problem is the solution. All of those broken systems are opportunities for you to invest in creating the better systems. And when you do that right, those are the kinds of investments that really do yield long-term financial resilience and economic empowerment. So those two things go together. If you really want to make a livelihood building people care, we have to think holistically, we have to think about investing, and we have to look for those opportunities to build the new systems of the future. Which brings us to the next letter, which is the first finger, which is right on the top of a stack of some other fingers. And this means we want to figure out how to stack our talents, our markets, and our products. Now, we won't have a lot of time in a short video like this to get into doing that, but we walk through ways to do this in order to build this sort of financial resilience in our lives in the book. But to give an example, so you might start with the idea of caring for people, but to me, this is still pretty limited, and I would like you to think really holistically about what all of your skills are, what your whole forms of capital are. The H in Thistle, the holism, also teaches us to recognize that we have way more forms of wealth at our disposal than just financial money, right? So in the book, we really get people to check in with what their whole skill set is, because the best livelihoods and the best lives are made when we get this great skill stack and we stack up a lot of different our skills and our talents and our friends and all of this together into a whole that builds that real financial resilience and really helps to solve problems. And it's the fun stuff. This is how we get to spend our lives doing the stuff that we really want to be doing with our time and not going broke doing it. So that kind of thing would be the next thought I have there is when it comes to people care, if anything can be people care, what else are you passionate about? What are your skills? Really check in with those in trying to figure out what you want to do with your time. The next letter is THIST. So this is T, and it doesn't stand for anything naughty. It's the middle finger, but it's in the middle of all of these other fingers, which makes it part of a team. The T is for team up, which tells us to be community organizers. And this part is particularly appropriate for the idea of people care, because it's all about rebuilding connections to people and nature right where we're at within our own communities. And this is really rewarding work, and it can really lead to financial resilience and economic empowerment. So that would be kind of another step. Now, as you see here, this is kind of it's a very permaculture thing. If you ask a permaculture designer what to do in your landscape, they're not going to tell you, well, you need to have a market garden. You have to have your rows this far apart. They're going to walk you through a design process in which you discover the answers for yourself. That's what good permaculture does. And, permaculture isn't a system or a set of answers or a way of doing anything. It's a way of figuring out what to do and a process for discovering the answers yourself. And so that's really, I guess, what I'm kind of talking through here. So in the book, we give some examples, though, of things like regenerative commercial kitchen stacks. There's no just clear, simple jobs in our book. Everything is all about very holistic, very creative sorts of life design. And then we're looking at stacking those with other things like a market garden and like your food forest, maybe a canning company or something like that. But it's the investment in the infrastructure of that commercial kitchen that really makes it all work. So we're always looking for what we call transformative investments, where we can invest our time and money in something that's going to build value and success long term. What else do we have here? The next is luck, and the next is enough. We're not going to have time to get into those, but I just like to point out that there's no one way to do it, and there's no single way to do people care, and there's so many opportunities to transform the systems we have into the systems we need for the future. And if we do it right and get the design right, we can actually not die broke in a gutter doing it. And this is what we need to do. We need to have a Green New Deal, right? To transform our local economies and our ecosystems. And we can't wait for politicians and thought leaders to do it for us. We have to figure out a way to pay ourselves and each other to do that work. It's a DIY Green New Deal is what we're talking about. So what you waiting for? Figure it out. And what I would say is it's all a process, and do the design work. And at the end, I promise you, if you do the design well and you actually get out there and do these adventures that transform your life, you're going to end up with a much more resilient and economically empowered situation in which the opportunities to spend your time doing people care will arise. Those opportunities will come up. All right. So thanks again for listening and watching. I hope I said something that's helpful and interesting to you. This is the book that I'm talking about, Growing Free. It's out now. You can find it at order it through your online at your local bookstores or by visiting growingfree.money. I crack myself up. That cracks me up. All right, so growingfree.money. I think there's a holiday sale on the book right now too. Check it out. Thanks for watching. I hope you got some ideas.